CrossFit the Dutchman as a project started when we were kind of in an identity crisis. Because at the time we were developing a lot of Nintendo DS titles, which were based on TV IPs or children's games, and we felt that it wasn't an accurate reflection of what the team was capable of. So there was this drive to create something, but not just to show that we could do something different, but also create something that was significant. Something that we as a team could only do, or that we were the only team that could do such a game.
At first, I think we were very ambitious on what kind of project this should be.
This blade at your throat was like, okay, you need to show something because now people are following you.
People don't like certain mechanics, so we need to go over everything again.
We got on top of it, but yeah, it nearly killed us.
At first, I think we were very ambitious on what kind of project this should be, and of course, as a game-loving person, you think of AAA products, and then try to pinpoint what kind of game you want to create and what you think is cool or awesome, instead of thinking, is this something you want or players want, or etc. etc. So for us, we started from looking at ourselves only.
No idea was too big, right? We were like, oh, it needs to be open world. We want an accurate reflection of what the land would look like in medieval Frisia. Nothing was too big. There was nobody pulling the brakes and saying, hey, listen, guys, you need to be thinking about how much work you're taking on. So I would say the first year of the project, everything was just blue ocean. Everything was expanding and growing bigger and bigger.
We thought that we had the experience to create certain mechanics. So what we did is compare it with games we played in combination what we thought was we could handle, which was top-down games, because for example, if you have a lower camera angle, you could see more, so that you needed to render more. And that would be a huge performance impact. So we tried to think of the technical restrictions we had in the team or with the hardware at hand, and then come with mechanics like Diablo 3, which was a great game at the time.
The combat was always going to be important because the character, historical character, he yields a 6-foot sword. So this is, I mean, you can't have the game without the huge sword, right? So combat was definitely going to be the prime focus of the title. But then the character of the story is also a commander of an army. So we also wanted to have strategic elements in there where the character would be able to control his legion, maybe send archers to the back of the battlefield, or send swordsmen to the front and make tactical decisions that could end up making the battle a win or a loss. A big part of doing CrossFit the Dutchman was showing the outside what we were developing. So our idea was, let's take people along this journey of development and show all aspects of it. Show the success, show the failure, show the things that you were thinking about, and ask people for their opinion.
We were very aware that as an indie developer, we didn't have a budget to do big marketing. By involving a lot of people early in the project, we hoped that people would be our ambassadors for the project.
It was a way for us to have an obligation towards the public to keep the project going and keep everybody updated. But at the same time, it was also kind of like this blade at your throat was like, okay, you need to show something because now people are following you. you can only deliver, and it's very difficult on your own blog to admit something like a mistake. So if a project would be delayed, or if we hadn't paid any attention to the game in a couple of weeks, do you then post a blog article about it? So it was very difficult to be truthful and honest on that blog and on that website.
To create a good game, you need to focus really well with the team on that product. And what happened is that we needed to create other games and get some money from it to fund this game.
But this also meant that people were working on the project on and off. It was a bunch of artists doing concept work and creating what the environment should look like. And then we had programmers working on prototypes, and then designers working on the story. It was all disconnected, and it was shredded basically. It was all shards of development efforts. So in my mind, it was a continuous effort, but it wasn't a real focused effort. It was all over the place. We had the ability to make the development effort, but we weren't able to channel it in time. We weren't able to channel the effort when it comes to the scope of the title. So basically, it remained broad, and it was unable to take a certain specific form. Maybe not the first, but the biggest wake-up call was the failure of the Kickstarter project that we did. This was a very intense couple of weeks where we launched the Kickstarter during a time where Kickstarter was still very new, and we didn't really know how to work it. But we were pushing very hard every day, bringing up news about the project, showing progress, and the game didn't get funded or didn't get to the funding goal where we wanted it to be. When that project finished, we were way down, and we were like, okay, maybe we should not build this game anymore. I think we probably said that to ourselves a couple of times as well. It's like, okay, this is the end. We tried, we gave it our best, but we should probably kill this right now because people aren't interested. People don't want this game.
The moment we started it, I think people were already aware that spending money on Kickstarter kind of projects could also mean that it wasn't getting completed. And I think in that case we were a little bit late starting a Kickstarter for games because it was a phase that everybody realized that some games weren't that well designed as it seemed.
I would say it was like at a pre-alpha stage. And that's probably being generous. It might even be better to say it was a bunch of thrown together prototypes at that time. Yeah.
It's not an easy way to get money. It's a different way to get money. So you can of course approach investors or use Kickstarter to create a community and investors, and that's a different kind of approach. And we started, I think, more on the approach of we want to get money to finish this up. Look, we have an awesome game, we thought, in our bubble, and I'm sure you will fund it.
By that time, for a while now, we by default have been reinvesting our profits into Cross of the Dutchman. So having done that for a couple of years, people also in the company were starting to ask, hey, is this a good idea still? Do we keep investing? Because at this stage we were hundreds of thousands of euros in investing in Cross of the Dutchman.
We came back from thinking that we could wrap up this project with that final budget we're not even past the prototype phase. People don't like certain mechanics, so we need to go over everything again and finish up this project.
We cut the story up in 3 parts, and we said, okay, what if we only tell the first part of the story? Because it introduces the characters, it tells the people about the background. Why is this character the way he is? Why does he fight the battles that he is fighting? And it's something that you can tell as a standalone story. So in that way, boom, the amount of work that we needed to do is much less than we originally thought. Then also when it comes to gameplay, right? So why not focus on just the combat? Why not make it just an action game instead of with RPG elements?
I think that was important for us because then we could focus more on the combat itself, which also needed more in-depth effects. For example, if you hit someone or something, you need certain effects like frame freezes, which gives you a moment to realize that you hit something, or flashes or particles and that kind of stuff. So we iterated on that specific element.
The final game still had some kind of way to evolve your character, but it was very, very minor. So we basically toned all that down and just focused on how do we create something that's entertaining and something that we can finish. And I think that there was a lot of discussions going back and forth and thinking about it, and this probably took like maybe half a year or something, maybe even longer, until we came to a point where we said, okay, now we feel more confident. Now we can think about maybe we should put it back in production again. We stopped looking for publishers. We set our minds on self-publishing the title, and Steam was going to be our platform of choice. And at that time, Steam Greenlight was still a thing, which meant that you had to submit your game and basically people would vote on the game, and if you would get enough votes, then Valve would say, okay, here you go, you can now publish your game on Steam. So this was another popularity contest. Maybe not one about funding, but it was one about getting support for your title.
We were more humble on how we should approach the project. So we weren't thinking about, oh, we need to recoup this project financially. We hope, of course, but we should let that go. We should make the best out of it. And with Greenlit, it was the first moment to check if our bubble was popped correctly, so to say.
Fortunately, we had a great response. I think within maybe 2 or 3 days, the game got greenlit, which was a big deal at the time because other games took months to get greenlit, maybe even more. But within a very little amount of time, we were at the top of the charts, the game got greenlit, and this was a huge impulse because now we were like, okay, listen guys, people want this game. We now have a reason and obligation to make this happen. So getting the game greenlit was also the mark where we said, okay, now we are going to finish this title. We refocus the team. We have already narrowed the scope, so we know what it's going to take. And this is where the team went into production for the final big stretch.
Released!
Yeah. Yes. So I still, during that day, I think there was such a relief. I mean, they have the saying of a weight falling off your shoulders, but I think I literally grew maybe a couple centimeters that day because of finally this is over. And it was just a matter of clicking the button and releasing the game to the public and rolling out the PR emails and watching the first reviews come in. And it was just such a great feeling because finally we slayed the dragon, right? The quest was over, and even without looking at the results, it felt like we accomplished what we set out to do.
Hello you revolver tosselots, Jim Sterling here, and this is Cross of the Dutchman. So yeah, I mean it's got a nice little art style and stuff to it, but it doesn't run very well and the combat is very stodgy. I don't know if that expands as we go on, hopefully it does. But right now, let's say I'm not immediately impressed. I'm not turned off entirely by it. I'm not, I'm having a laugh at how stupid Pierre is, but I'm not genuinely pissed off at it or anything.
If you are sending out a product and you send it to a person that is really into a certain type of product or game, which doesn't match your type of game, then you can get really bad reviews.
They were seeing something in the game that ultimately we weren't building, or we weren't building anymore. To be honest, I don't even recall them having a negative point of view on the game. So that might be something that I've maybe put away somewhere. I mean, there's always going to be people who like your game or who don't like your game. But overall, I feel that what stuck with me was the people that did like the game and that appreciated it for what it was. The toll was very big, and I would say it was almost too big. And it's good that we were able to finish the product, but the cost was almost too high. And looking back at that, it's a situation where I think we would never want to find ourselves in again. I don't want to say it was irresponsible in that way, because we have the responsibility of the people working here and their families and their livelihood. But it was going in too deep, and it was going in for it was too much. So we made it out. We got on top of it, but yeah, it nearly killed us. Yeah.
I think it's awesome to have those dreams, and you should work on those dreams, but get people involved. Get people involved that can bring you back to earth. Can bring you back to earth on different parts, as I told before, on the financial part, how to manage risks, to ask you questions, what is your target audience, etc., etc. I think that is the important thing to consider before starting on your own games.
If I can look back into that meeting room all those years ago, and if I could drop a post-it note or just have scream one sentence, and then I would be sucked back in time, I would probably just say, don't do it, or do something else. But then it's all the steps that you make in between that get you to the point where you are today. So I don't know if not doing Cross of the Dutchman would have brought us to a better position than we are today. I also now realize that jumping into a project, overscoping, being overly ambitious can do a lot more harm than it does well. Safe to say I wouldn't do it again in the same way, but yeah, it will take a lot for us to finish the story of Cross of the Dutchman, I think.
So yeah, we always try to respond to anybody who mails in or has questions, or try to help them out, even if they're stuck with the story or something. I mean, it's just fun if people take the time to reach out to us and ask us about the game. Then we really feel obligated and compelled to send a response or try to help them out whenever we can.
So that's still like part of the pride, or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen too often, so it's not like a full-time job or anything. But every couple of weeks, you get a new email, you get someone calling in, and yeah, it's fun to be reminded of the game. And sometimes we really have to think, oh, how did this plan out? How do we deal with this problem? Because I mean, none of the guys are working on the project on a daily basis, of course, anymore. But yeah, when someone asks you for something, yeah, it probably means that we need to dig in a little bit deeper, and us two figuring out how do we resolve the problem.
What would it take for you to continue on with either Cross of the Dutchman or like a similar game?
That's a big question, isn't it? I guess a good partnership. Yeah, I think if we find the right partner, we could dive in again. And just playing this right now makes me think, how cool would it be to have this on my PlayStation or my Nintendo Switch? Yeah, who knows? Could be really cool.